Alright, let's do an update and forecast on the wildfires burning in Maui. We're going to look at a number of different links throughout the course of this video. First, we're going to look at where the wildfire is and how much heat the fire is still throwing off, how active the fire still is at the moment. Then we're going to check out what it actually looks like from space, and then we're going to look at some of the reasons why this wildfire is happening, including the strong winds because of Hurricane Dora. And then we're also going to look at drought conditions throughout Maui, which played a big part and a big role in why these wildfires have gotten as bad as they have been, just because the fuels are very dry. And then probably the most important part of this video is we're going to look at the red flag warning that's still in place, and then we'll see how long that's in place. And then finally we'll top it off with a link you can go to if you actually want to help out, and the link for that is in the description. So I'm just going to check, make sure we are live right here. Yeah, it looks like we are streaming. All right, so now let's just dive into what I think is always the most helpful thing to look at right off the bat, which is where the wildfire is. So the key information that we've been getting out of this fire has been on this western side over here. This is by Lahaina, and unfortunately, we have confirmed 6 fatalities on this fire so far, and apparently hundreds of structures are destroyed in this area, and numerous evacuations are still in place right now. And I was pausing for a second just because I didn't want to say this, but I have seen from numerous sources that basically the town of Lahaina is destroyed at this point. Now, what we can do is see how active this fire actually is, because what these stars are showing is actually some of the heat that was being picked up in the past. So that's not where the fire is actively burning at the moment, but that is where it has burned, where you see those little stars right there. To find out where it's actually burning right now, we can look at GOES detections, and that's actually where some of the good news comes in, is we're not seeing a whole lot of heat activity anymore, especially on the western side here. And then we do still see some in the center, but it doesn't look like it's as large as it was throughout the day yesterday. So it looks like we're moving in the right direction when it comes to fire intensity, but obviously the damage has already been done, and you can see how this just burned directly up to the coast. And the reason for that makes a lot more sense when you look at the wind streams on here as well. Basically took this fire and then pushed it to the west. And I was also hearing some reports of people actually having to jump into the harbor, jump into the ocean, and go onto different boats because the fire was just pushing right up against the water. If you've ever been to Lahaina, then you know that there's actually not a whole lot of beach there. In a lot of places, it goes straight from the streets. Maybe there's a row of shops, and then it's just straight into the ocean. So incredibly and unfortunately, a lot of people were, or I shouldn't say a lot of people, I don't have the exact numbers, but they were jumping into the ocean to get away from this flame as it was going. And then the key thing you can see is that there's actually multiple fires going on here. The one that's getting all the coverage is the one around Lahaina, but then you can also see that there's this one just to the east of Kihei. And then I'm not sure if these have been connected, but it does look like there's some other fire activity there. And then I'm not going to go into it in this video, but there's also some fire activity on the main island as well. So let's actually start looking at this fire from space. I think I can zoom in here so that we can get a better view of what's going on. So if you look really closely, you might be able to see a little smoke coming off of Hawaii right here. But the key thing that I want to point out is Hurricane Dora, that is to the southwest of the Hawaiian Islands. And you can see it's a pretty large hurricane right there, and that's actually why, that's a big part of the reason that this fire has been as bad as it is, or these multiple fires. Because if you look at Hurricane Dora, so if we click right here, we can figure out how many winds it is. Looks like it's up to 145 mile per hour sustained winds. That should make it a Category 4 hurricane. I'm not seeing the actual number on here, but we can read this. So it says approximately 2,000 miles southeast of Hilo, Hawaii. Tropical wave is producing some disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Environmental conditions could support some gradual development of the system during the next several days as it moves generally westward at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Pacific Basin or formation. So I want to say that's actually something different that's going on right there. I think a better way to look at it is actually just windy.com. Put the link for this in the description as well. You can see where the Hawaiian Islands are, where this hurricane is, and then we can actually just see the wind gusts in here. If we click right there, that shows 110, although I do trust the other source that it was saying 145 miles per hour. But you can see the distance that we have between the Hawaiian Islands and this hurricane. But it's creating a pressure gradient. So you see these lines right here? That shows, when you see those getting closer together, the closer those are together, the faster your winds are going to be. And it's in large part because of this hurricane that these winds are as fast as they are. And if we click into Maui over here, we can see what kind of wind gusts we're dealing with on the island right now. It looks like the winds have come down slightly, but that's still pretty gusty, 25 to 32 miles per hour. And then the other key factors that we always look at are temperature and humidity. Earlier this afternoon, it looks like they're in the 80s. I looked at the forecast earlier. Lahaina is supposed to be 89 degrees tomorrow. And then we always look at humidity as well. That's where humidity isn't the main driving factor of this wildfire. It's actually more what the trade winds do over Hawaii. So if you don't know this, you usually have winds blowing from east to west over Hawaii. You typically have this big high pressure system over the Pacific. And you can see how that's spinning clockwise. What that does is it takes winds from the east and blows them over Hawaii to the west. And then if you look at what this does on Maui, you can imagine these winds going over these mountain ranges. As they go over the mountain range, a lot of the moisture, I think we could actually, yeah, we're on moisture right now. A lot of the moisture gets squeezed out, and you get what's called a rain shadow effect, where you have some very lush rainforest on the eastern side of the island, but then when the winds drop down this other side, a lot of the moisture has already been squeezed out. So a lot of parts of Maui are actually pretty dry, and that's something that maybe you didn't know. I always think of Hawaii and I think of very lush rainforests, but it's because of this rain shadow effect that the western side of Maui is actually pretty dry. And that was one of the main things that I noticed when I went there, is I was surprised by the lack of trees on the western side. So if we actually click in there, get a little closer view, you can see that's not the best view that we have. I think this one is better right here. So we'll zoom into Maui. And we have our little chart on the bottom here. So where you see that tannish color, that's moderate drought. And these numbers, ignore those. I believe that's for all of Hawaii, not just Maui. About half of Maui is in that moderate drought category. And then that dark orange color, that is severe drought. So this isn't something I've ever said before, but more of Maui is in drought right now, at least percentage-wise, than California. So that's a big part of the reason and that we've had these fires, and you can see where the drought is while combining it with what we just talked about with the rain shadow effect. It's the western side of the island where the moisture is squeezed out over here, air drops over here, and it's very dry, so your fuels are very dry. So all of that might have seemed like a long tangent, but it was the long way of saying that if you have dry fuels and if you have gusty winds, partially because of Hurricane Dora, that's to the southwest, that's going to lead to prime wildfire conditions, and then it makes it easier for a fire to start, and then once a fire does start, it's a lot easier for that fire to spread. So this is a useful tool that you can use if you want to learn more about the weather conditions and the weather forecast that's going on. First thing that you can do is just type in Lahaina. So this is National Weather Service. You can see expected to be about 89 degrees tomorrow, sunny and breezy. So gusts up to 28 miles per hour. So that's at least less than where they were today, although you can see gusts tonight still as high as 38 miles per hour. So from here, what you can do is it shows hazardous weather conditions. And you can see there's a wind advisory until 6 a.m. tomorrow, and then a red flag warning until 6 a.m. tomorrow. So you can just click on that, and then it has what I think is the most important information when it comes to this wildfire, this red flag warning over here. Now there is also another way to get to that, just in a different way. If you go to National Weather Service, I put the link for this in the description, and you just click on this little picture of Hawaii, it's going to take you to this screen right here. And you can also click red flag warning right there, and it's going to be all the same information. So if we actually look in here, those are all the places that we have the red flag warning for. And then it says, now in effect until 6 a.m. Thursday for strong winds and low humidity for most leeward areas. So that word right there, leeward, that ties back to what we were talking about with the rain shadow effect. The side of the mountains that are hit by the winds, that's the windward side. And then on the other side of the mountains, that's the leeward side. So when you look at the picture of where these red flag warnings are for Hawaii, you notice a lot of it is on the leeward side of the islands because your winds are blowing from east to west. So it's the western sides that are going to be drier. So just clicking back in here. For strong winds and low humidity for most leeward areas. Affected areas, most leeward areas of all Hawaiian islands. Wind, east winds 20 to 30 miles per hour with gusts up to 50 miles per hour. Humidity 40 to 45% through this evening, which isn't a whole lot in California terms, in terms of dryness. When we worry about wildfire in California, you'll have relative humidity around 9% or 13%. So humidity, it's dry out there, but that's not the main thing that's leading to the wildfire activity. It's the winds and the dry fuels that we have. So impacts, any fires that develop will likely spread rapidly. Outdoor burning is not recommended. And I didn't look this up earlier, but this is a very important thing to know. Maui Wildfire evacuations. Let's see if I can find a good link here. So Western Maui wildfires, it looks like, yeah, if you just search what I had just searched, Maui evacuations, and then you go to this map, you can click on these different areas, Western Maui wildfires, and it's going to have all the different areas of information that you need. Looks like we have emergency information updates on Twitter, traffic updates on Twitter, situation updates on Twitter. You know, let's just actually click on one of those and see what happens. So County of Maui, looks like we have some road closures, and that's actually not as helpful, I think, as just looking at some of the things that are trending on X when it comes to the wildfires. But we'll look at that in 1 second. First thing I want to do, or the next thing that I want to do, is I actually want to get a better idea of what has been burning around Lahaina. So you see right there, we can also come over to watch duty, turn on some different layers. Let's go maybe street map and see how that changes things. So right here we can zoom in, and I believe that one's pronounced Kanapali, and then I'm Launiopoko. It looks like that's where this fire stretches right here. So what we can do next is go over to Google Earth. Let's zoom in to Maui here. This is actually where you can see the rain shadow effect in action. You see eastern side of this mountain, bright green, western side of the mountain, pretty brown. Similar thing over here, very green on the eastern side, western side actually pretty brown. So let's now zoom in to Lahaina. And it looks like it was stretching from Kanapali down through this area. So you can see how many, Let's twist it right here. So you can see the fire most likely started up closer to these mountains, and then the winds pushed this fire down towards Lahaina. Now if we zoom in here, this is what I was talking about when I was saying that there's not actually a whole lot of beach. Apparently this fire just came right through this town and then right up across the water right here. And because structures can be used as fuel in a wildfire, that's why this fire was able to push all the way up against the water, and some people were even having to jump into the ocean and then jump into this harbor as well. And I did see some footage coming out of the harbor that we can look at right here. So if we go over to X, formerly known as Twitter, let's see if we can actually see some of the footage that's been coming out of here. Sorry, my computer's a little bit slow. It always does that when I try to show Google Earth. I think that just takes a bit too much energy. So let's look here. Go to Maui regularly. I can't believe I'm seeing all of this. So that right there was the view that I was talking about, where there's not much beach. It just goes directly up against the water, and that is some pretty hard footage to look at right there. I don't believe there's a location on that, but I'd imagine that's Lahaina. Let's see this one as well. So that's the Google Earth image that we were just looking at around Lahaina, and then that's what it looks like right now. So we can come back over to Google Earth and we can match that up with what we're looking at right here. So the fire looks like it pushed down, and then we can match up that photo we were just looking at with the harbor right there. So that's what it used to look like. And that looks like some aerial imagery that we have right there. Let's see what else is on here. So latest satellite fire detection imagery indicates a dramatic decrease in fire activity over the last several hours near Lahaina and West Maui. So that goes along with what I was just showing on the Caltopo website. So all these little stars, that shows where the fire was. If we look at GOES detections, that shows where we're still seeing some active heat. So when you have that gray, that's pretty much when the fire just is smoldering, and those are your older timestamps right there. That's where you do still have some heat coming off. So that is where we most likely still have some fire activity. And one thing that I haven't tried yet is you can put on natural color fire. And I have to zoom in so much we might not be able to see anything here. Yeah, not seeing much. And yeah, I can't really see the fire from this imagery, but you can see Hurricane Dora down to the southwest, which was a big part of the reason that we had such windy conditions for Hawaii, and still do have some windy conditions. That red flag warning that we were looking at is in place until 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. So I'm definitely going to be keeping a close eye on this overnight, but it is good to see that I'm not the only one who's seeing a decrease in fire activity. So it at least looks like we're moving in the right direction. But it's also hard to paint any kind of silver lining when you see images like this where it looks like there wasn't really even that much more that could have been burned. It looked like the entire town of Lahaina was destroyed. So here's the larger imagery of what we're just looking at. See if I can make this big. Nope, doesn't look like it. But there you can see that it is two separate fires, the one by Lahaina and the one by Kihei. Oh man, this is one of the things that I was wondering. So, if you've ever been to Lahaina, you know this is one of the most beautiful things in the world. And This account saying, heartbreaking to believe the Lahaina Banyan tree is no longer standing. I took this video under its leaves while visiting my father-in-law 2 summers ago. Please hold the people of Maui in your hearts. So that was... this was the question I had. Are we certain it's gone? I can't cry anymore, please. Our Maui family says yes, but we are crossing our fingers that the smoke will clear and show it is still standing there. All right, here is a different video though. All right, if we needed some silver lining, this person saying, not my video, but the banyan tree miraculously survived. Hurt badly, but still standing. Let's see if we can make this video a little bit bigger. Yeah, it looked like it got pretty burnt up there. I wonder, I wouldn't imagine those trees are evolved to wildfire like the ones in California where it can actually help them in some cases. But the fact that you're at least still seeing some maybe green in those leaves is some good news right there. So, yep, can't confirm whether the banyan tree has been destroyed. So there's another account talking about it. So much has been destroyed by the fire on Maui. On Maui lives, we have 6 fatalities at this point, but also the banyan tree, it was over 150 years old and had a mystical importance for the Hawaiian people. So seeing some different reports on whether it's destroyed or not. So can't really confirm or deny at this point. So this is another video coming out. I'd imagine this is Lahaina. These people look like they're maybe in their car right here, trying to drive out. And I have seen some of these videos, yeah, I was about to say, where it's fire on both sides of the street as people are trying to evacuate. Let's see if we can find any other recent information. I think that's the same video that we were just looking at. Oh, and then before I go any farther, I meant to say this earlier, but there's a link in the description if you want to help out in any way. There is a GoFundMe page, Aid to Lahaina Families Affected by the Wildfire, and I saw this link from Kai Lenny. You might know him. He's one of the top athletes in the world. He's a waterman from Maui, and he said that the people who started this GoFundMe link are good, credible sources, and they'll make sure the money goes to the right people and the people who need it the most. So if you want to help out, this is the link that you can use, and again, that's in the description of this video. So just been kind of trying to figure out what's going on, and I think we have a better idea now as I've been able to read more of the sources here. So I'll just try to do a quick recap just in case anybody is new to the live stream. So we had some big wildfires pop up on Maui. It's actually multiple fires. You have one up on the western side of the island, Lahaina, and then another one near Kihei. Now, one thing that's working in our favor is where you see all those stars, that's where the fire was, but that's not where the fire is still actively burning. To see where it's actively burning, we can turn on the GOES detections, and I do always use this with a caveat or a disclaimer, because in the past I have seen these detections be off by quite a bit before, and oftentimes they can actually overestimate how much fire activity you're still seeing. But this is what it's showing right now. It looks like the fire around Lahaina has significantly calmed down, but the footage out of Lahaina shows that it pretty much looks like the entire town has been destroyed at this point, with 6 fatalities as well. And then we are still showing some heat on the fire near Kihei. Now, if we go to watch duty, you can see what happened here is we have these east to west winds on both of these fires, actually a little bit almost northeasterly. And what that did was it takes the fire, it's able to pick up some of the burning embers, and then it can throw those embers ahead of the major blaze, and then that leads to a lot faster growth. The other thing that it does is it just pushes the fire forward faster, and then it also provides more oxygen to the fire. And the three keys to wildfire are heat, oxygen, and fuel. So if you have winds, it's providing a lot more oxygen to the fire, and then that's able to lead to faster growth as well. Now, one other thing that was leading to, or that led to this fire being as bad as it has been, is Hurricane Dora. So you can see that over to the southwest of Hawaii here. I was trying to find the information on Dora. So let's see. Oh, here's the map we were looking for earlier. It kind of threw me off earlier because I started to read the wrong information about some other tropical storm. This is what we're actually looking for here. So this is Hurricane Dora. Maximum sustained winds 145 miles per hour. And when I did the 6 p.m. news, it was 130 miles per hour. So it looks like the hurricane itself is increasing in intensity. And I believe 145 would make it a Category 4 hurricane. That should be one of the main things that they label, and I'm still not seeing that. So let's see, wind speed probabilities. Yep, very windy. Let's actually go back. I think this other one was better. Main thing that I want to say about the hurricane, though, is the hurricane's not the actual threat to Hawaii. If I zoom out here, you can see how far away the hurricane actually is from Hawaii. It's easier to see if we go on wind gusts. Hawaii's all the way up here. One source that I was looking at earlier said it's about 800 miles away. But if you look at these lines, those are lines of constant pressure, and the closer those lines are, the faster your winds are going to be. So while the hurricane isn't hitting Hawaii, and it's actually moving away from Hawaii, which is working in our favor. That'll help decrease the winds moving forward. Just the fact that the hurricane is there is leading to all these gusty winds that you see around Hawaii. You see how when you zoom out, around a high, you usually don't have that windy of conditions. You look at there, it shows maybe 20 mile per hour gusts. You look at right on the high, it's 10 mile per hour gusts. But then to the northwest of this hurricane, so you have that pressure gradient going from the high to that low. And because it's close together, that leads to, I know pressure gradient's a very sciencey word. How I like to think of it is think of this high to the low almost like a tray. And let's say those were the exact same pressure. You have 1,032 at the high, and then down here was maybe 1,030. That would be a very flat tray. So if you poured water on that, the water would maybe go to one side, but it would go very slowly. Now, if you have a huge pressure difference, so 1,032 to 1,007, that's like tilting your tray upward and then pouring water on it, and that water is going to go a lot faster. So you see, between the high and the low, that's where your gusty winds are. And then if we zoom in to Maui, if you've ever been to Maui, you know Maui is already a very windy island. And then when you throw a hurricane about 800 miles to the southwest of it, leading to a bigger pressure gradient, that's going to make things even windier. So just looking at tonight's forecast, it does look like it's still windy conditions, and that's why we do still have a red flag warning in place. But we will eventually start to see those winds decrease as the hurricane moves farther away, and that's why the red flag warning is going to go away as well. Now, the other factor that I was talking about, because when you think of Hawaii, your first thought probably doesn't go to wildfire. And that's because you usually think of Hawaii as like a lush tropical rainforest, but it's very different on Maui. If you've ever been to Maui, I believe it's called the Road to Hana on this eastern side. Yeah, I think Hana is shown right there. And you have what's called trade winds. So let's zoom back out. And typically over the Pacific, you have a high pressure system like this. And you see how this high pressure system has clockwise flow? That leads to winds going from the east to the west over Hawaii. So the reason this ties into wildfires, that actually has a major impact on how dry your fuels are. So on the eastern side of Maui, your winds are going to bump into these mountains, and that's going to take a lot of the air, and that air is going to be lifted up. As it's lifted up, the moisture is squeezed out of it, and that's why you have this lush rainforest on the eastern side of Maui. But then when the winds carry that air to the western side of Maui, a lot of that moisture has already been squeezed out, so then it's going to lead to drier conditions over here. And you can actually see that when we are looking at the zoomed out view of Maui, where on the eastern side it is this bright green color, same with the mountains up on the more northern parts of the island. But then if you look at the western side of the mountains, it's a much browner color. So that's the rain shadow effect. Now the reason that that's important is because where those dry parts are on that Google Earth imagery we were just looking at, that's where we actually have drought conditions in Maui right now. Where you see the tan color, that's moderate drought. Where you see the orange color, that's severe drought. So when you have drought conditions, that means your fuels are dry. And then you can understand that if you've ever started a campfire. If you have very dry fuels, it's much easier for you to start that fire. And then the fire is going to burn a lot faster and hotter once it does start because the fuels are dry. The science behind that is because before a log can burn, all the water has to be evaporated out of it. So if the log's already dry, then the energy of the fire just goes straight to burning the log instead of some of that energy being wasted by evaporating water. Now this ties both of those things together that we were just looking at, the gusty winds and the dry conditions. So we have a red flag warning, and look at where the pink color is. That's where the red flag warning is in place. So these are all the Hawaiian Islands. I've mostly been focusing on Maui throughout this video, but you can see affected area, most leeward areas of all Hawaiian Islands. East winds 20 to 30 miles per hour with gusts up to 50 miles per hour. Humidity 40 to 45% through this evening. And then any fires that develop will likely spread rapidly, or the fires that are on the ground will continue to spread. Although I will say things do look like they are improving in terms of how much fire activity we're actually seeing. So I think final thing I will show. Oh, this is actually the imagery I was looking for earlier. So you can see the two orange flare-ups right there. And you can see how these clouds are moving from east to west. And then you can actually see how a lot of those clouds are popping up on the eastern sides of the mountains, but then they're not on the western sides. That's the rain shadow effect, perfectly illustrated right there. And then you can see where those two fires pop up. But then we have looked at other imagery where it looks like the heat detections aren't as significant any longer. So, basic summary, looks like we have, unfortunately, 6 fatalities due to the fires in Maui. Hundreds of structures destroyed. Don't have an exact number on that. We looked up what happened to the banyan tree. Some reports saying the tree is destroyed. Some reports saying the tree is still standing. That's something we'll just have to kind of wait to figure out. And then if you want to help the people of Maui, you can go to the link in the description. This is it was started by credible people, and they're going to make sure that this money goes into all the right hands. So it's aid to Lahaina families affected by the wildfire. So I'm probably going to continue doing updates on this wildfire, especially if things change or anything drastic starts to happen. But it is at least good news. The fact that the red flag warning will be expiring at 6 a.m., that means decreased fire danger moving forward. But unfortunately, a lot of the damage has already been done. So as always, thoughts and prayers go out to everybody who has been affected by this wildfire in Maui. I hope this video was helpful, and thanks for watching.